All right, turning your Bibles to the book of Matthew, first book in the New Testament. The parables, the stories of Jesus appear all throughout the Gospels, a lot of different places. You have to remember how the Bible is actually put together. It's put together by people that determines where chapter breaks are, where verse numbers are. As far as we are aware, God didn't say to the writers, they didn't give them the verse numbers. This is a way to keep track of everything so we can point to a particular place. And some of the parables, the same parable will appear in a couple different places. And sometimes parables only appear in one place in one of the books. There's a lot more than what we studied. I tried to do a collection of parables dealing with different themes. Parable means to throw alongside. So we have to remember that, especially for today's parable. Parables have a central truth, one idea that it's trying to convey. So it's not like you should take it and try to analyze every little line of what it means as one central. It's like telling a story. Has a central truth. It's Matthew 25, that 1 should be a 2. Matthew 25, 1 through 13. We will read through it once, and then we'll look at it between the lines. At that time, God's king. This is Jesus talking to believers and non-believers alike. Mostly these were his followers and people that have been following him for quite some time. So they're familiar with some of his other stories. Chapter 25 is basically a chapter about end times and what happens when you die. And back in Israel's time, there was great debate about what happens when you die because they were all in captivity. So they're all wondering, is this the end? Is this what's going on? So that's the setting, Matthew 25. At that time, God's kingdom will be like 10 bridesmaids who went to wait for the groom. They took their lamps with them. 5 of them were foolish and 5 of them were wise. The foolish bridesmaids took their lamps with them, but they did not take extra oil for the lamps. The wise bridesmaids took their lamps and more in jars. When the groom was very late, the bridesmaids could not keep their eyes open and they fell asleep. At midnight, someone announced, "The groom is coming. Come and meet him." Then all the bridesmaids woke up and made their lamps ready, but the foolish one said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. The oil of our lamps is all gone." The wise bridesmaids answered, "No, the oil we have might not be enough for all of us, but you go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." So the foolish bridesmaids went to buy oil. While they were gone, the groom came. The bridesmaids who were ready went in with the groom to the wedding feast. Then the door was closed and locked. Later, the other bridesmaids came and they said, "Sir, open the door to let us in." But the groom answered, "Certainly not. I don't even know you." So, always be ready. You don't know the day or the time when the Son of Man will come. End of story. Boom, mic drop. It's not, at first look, it doesn't look good, does it? It's kind of a scary parable in that it's got some pretty poignant advice in here. Now let's look at it and what in the world does all this mean? So, at that time, God's kingdom will be like so. Let's look at that. At that time means, again, they like to talk a lot about when are things going to take place in the kingdom? When is God going to restore Israel? When is he going to set people free? There's a lot of people in captivity right now all over the world. What have they been held captive with? Fear. Fear is holding a lot of people captive right now, whether it be founded or unfounded. We are in captivity. So at that time basically means at the time of Christ's coming. God's kingdom, it says, what's God's kingdom going to be like then? They talk about these things a lot. It's going to be like 10 bridesmaids who wait for the groom. And they took their lamps with them. There's a wedding analogy here all throughout the Bible. In weddings, that the groom is Jesus. The bride is the church, his believers. Also, one thing you have to realize from Scripture, during this time period, the Israelites and the Jewish people, let me tell you what, now they loved to party. They loved celebrations. They loved their wine. They loved to party nonstop for 5, 6, 7 days. So during a wedding celebration, when Jesus turned the water to wine, the reason that was such a big deal, it wasn't just that everybody was coming over for the night to celebrate the wedding and have the wedding reception. The deal was it was going to last for days. And it would be quite an embarrassment for the family that's hosting everything to run out of everything. You know how that is sometimes they're planning something, all of a sudden somebody's got to run to the store. Well, it was really kind of impossible to run to the store back then. You pretty much had it or you didn't. So wedding celebrations usually lasted like a week. I don't know. I'm like there thinking, don't you people have jobs? I mean, what's up with that? But anyway, they did. They celebrated a lot. They would go to the town. They would stay with relatives. And so that would be the case here. Also, the groom would be making a deal with the bride's father. And in those situations, you remember dowry and those kind of things? What would happen here is the groom would receive money from the bride's father. It's like, here, please, take her off my hands. Here, take this money. Take my daughter. She's crazy. Now, that's, who knows, maybe that was the situation sometimes. But that was tradition, is that they would negotiate a price. Say, that's a pretty good deal, isn't it? You get the woman and you get money. So the grooms were set. So it was a different time. That's just what happened. I wish I'd have got paid. Anyway. So what happens is then you get this deal going on between the groom and the bride's father. That's basically what was going on. The groom is away. Okay? And then everybody's waiting. And it was always a big tradition for the groom to come in with the bridesmaids into the celebration. The bride, I'm assuming, was already there. So that's the setting, so they would understand this story. Now, sometimes we have to look at it between the lines a little bit to find out. So that's what took place and what was impending the events. So it says, 5 of them, they took their, where were they? The king to be like 10's bride, 10, so we have 10 of them. Wait for the groom. He's making the deal, waiting. They took their lamps with them. This is going to be at night, so they didn't have KE or anything, so they lit everything by oil lamps. And these are flat. I don't know if you've seen the little flat kind of ceramic type things. Kind of looks like a Aladdin lamp out of a Disney thing. And so the oil would have to stay in the lamp. Just old kind of wick stuck down in there, light it. When it runs out of oil, obviously, you're done. So it would be very important to have those because nobody could see anything throughout the festival there, throughout the celebration, not festival. So that would be a pretty important thing. And they were responsible for that. They all marched in with their lamps. 5 of them were foolish and 5 of them were wise. But Jesus does not beat around the bush. And actually a better interpretation in the Greek is stupid. They were stupid. So they're foolish. The foolish bridesmaids took their lamps with them, but what? They did not take extra oil. So when the lamp runs out, it's pretty much a done deal. The wise ones, what did they do? They took their lamps and more oil in jars. These are not glass jars, these are like clay type things. So what? They were prepared, is what we're saying. When the groom was very late, so in other words here, the groom was still making the deal, and it doesn't say that there was a problem, it basically says he did not come when they expected. So it was going to be a while. Nobody knew when the groom was going to show up. And the bridesmaids could not keep their eyes open. They all fell asleep. And then all of a sudden, at midnight, so it's late, you really don't expect things to happen. The groom is coming. Come and meet him. Basically, now's your time. You've been here all this time. Some of you are ready. Some of you not so much. You've been at a time when nobody expected, and all of a sudden, they fall asleep. All the bridesmaids woke up. They got their lamps ready, trimmed their wicks, whatnot. But the foolish one said to the wise, because their lamps had run out, right? Well, give us some of your oil. Oil in our lamps is all gone. And you're thinking, well, they should have done it. They should have given it to him, right? To be nice and kind. That's what the Bible preaches. Well, it's not necessarily so here. The wise bridesmaids answered, say, no, the oil we have might not be enough for all of us, but you go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves. So now, I don't know how this works, but the parable goes that at midnight they got to traipse downtown find the cellar of oil. So what are we saying here? Why did he not give them some? Sometimes you have things you just can't share with somebody else. In this situation, you cannot sell your faith to somebody else. You cannot give it to them. You can't get to heaven because grandma went to church every Sunday. This is all your kind of decision. You can help people as much as you can, and we're called to. But you can't do it for them. There's some things that people just have to do on their own. And your choice to follow Jesus Christ and let Him into your life is a decision that you have to make on your own. It's not something that they can share with them. At this point, in this kind of a situation, it's too late. Our talking, our negotiating is done. You're going to have to make this decision on your own. And I don't know if you're going to make it or not, right? That's exactly what took place. So the foolish bridesmaids had nothing to do other than to go buy more oil. And then what happened? While they were gone, the groom came. The bridesmaids who were ready went in with the groom to the wedding feast, just as they had prepared. And now the scary part, the door was closed. Not only closed, but locked. Think about this big heavy door we have here on the left. When it slams shut, it's kind of final. And then if we had a deadbolt lock, we'd lock it. Kind of gives me analogies of the ark. I was horrified as a child to watch some of the old biblical movies about when God shut the door to the ark. Noah had it all ready, but God shut the door. And all those people on the other side, now they want on the boat. Now they think, well, maybe Noah's not that crazy after all. Think about that with all this flooding we had going on. I wonder if some people were prepared for that. Who was and who wasn't? Who prepared for the flood the other day and who didn't? When it happens, there's no going back. All of a sudden, you're either prepared or you're not. You can't stop it. So in this case, the door was closed, not only closed, but locked. Later, the other bridesmaids came and they said, "Sir, open the door to let us in." I mean, you can imagine them beating on the door. But the groom answered, "Certainly not." And then probably the most scariest part of the parable, "I don't even know you. I don't even know you." So these people were part of the community. They were part of the celebration. They were part of what was happening. But the groom didn't even really know who they were. At that point, he had to distance himself from them because, as we were saying earlier, like with the wine, it would be a great embarrassment. They have really distanced themselves from the wedding party and from the feast because they were not ready. They've caused shame upon the wedding party because they were not ready. So Jesus says, here's your little tagline here at the end. It says what it's all about. So always be ready. Because, why? You do not know the day or the time when the Son of Man will come. We don't know. We don't know, and at this point, this is before Jesus' resurrection. Right now we're looking for the second coming of Christ. All throughout the Bible, there's little clues about what's going to happen at that time, what's not going to happen. And so we don't know the exact time. There's a reason for that, because what? We should always be ready. If you knew without a doubt, today at 4 o'clock was going to be Judgment Day, would you do anything different with your afternoon? If not, it's probably a good sign. If you have a lot to do between now and 4 o'clock, you might want to ask yourself why. And if you do have a lot to do between now and 4 o'clock, you might really be glad that 4 o'clock comes and goes because you still have a second chance. You're not going to have time to go to town and buy new oil when the second coming comes. It's going to be over. And the Bible's very clear. It's going to be a date and time and place that you just don't expect. You ever had that happen where something happens just kind of like out of the clear blue, you didn't expect it? That's the way that's going to be. I think about some of the application. We can look at, I'll read this just because it gives us the straightforward. Matthew 7:21 through 23. Not every man who calls me Lord is going to enter God's kingdom. The only people who enter are those who do what my Father in heaven wants. And on that day, many will call me Lord, and they will say, Lord, Lord, and by the power of your name we spoke for God. And by your name we forced out demons who did many miracles. And Jesus says, well, I'm going to tell those people very clearly, get away from me, you people who do wrong. I never knew you. Now, this goes in stark contrast to what one world religion that everybody's trying to tote all around the world right now, and that if you're good, everybody gets to go to heaven. Just be nice and be good to everybody, be tolerant, have diversity, all these kind of catchwords saying that it's going to be okay. God's not really going to do that. He's a nice God. He's a loving God. How would he send anybody to hell? That is all very incorrect. That's a man-made construct that is not true, and it's not in the Bible. If you're going to say you believe in Jesus, you need to be believing in the Bible. And the Bible says one of these days it's going to be cut right down the middle in this one, right? It was 50%. 5 of the bridesmaids were wise, 5 were foolish. A lot more verses in the Bible that cut that down even further. So what does this mean to us? It means, are you a professor of the faith, like you profess, you tell other people that you're a Christian, or do you actually possess it? That is 2 different things. And you ask yourself, you're the only one that knows. You and God are the only 2 that know that relationship you have with God. But you can't fool God. You can't fool yourself, and you can't fool God. You may be able to fool other people. So I'll close with this. So make sure you're possessing, not just professing. How are you sure? It's a very easy way to remember the ABCs of salvation. Admit, believe, confess. Contains it all right there. First of all, admit. You have to admit there's a problem, right? Admit you're a sinner. I'm sorry, I'm a sinner. I'm not going to go to heaven without some kind of retribution. That's admit. B, you have to believe that Jesus is the Son of God. But remember, even Satan believes that Jesus is the Son of God. You got to admit and believe. Third one, very important piece of the puzzle, confess. You must confess that Jesus is the Lord over your life, and you have salvation through him. You must live it, you must confess it, and you must possess it. I remember there was a certain play that we used to do, kind of like a little mini short play we used to do as a travel around the country as that teen. And it was one of the most impactful things that we would do. It only took like 2 minutes. 2-minute play. But almost every time we did it, we would have like tons of people just accept Christ by the end of the play. It was the most amazing thing. And what happened was we had one person that served as Satan. He was dressed up in a little suit, a little tie, looking very spiffy. The rest of us played little demons. I played like a little Hunchback of Notre Dame type demon. It was kind of silly. He would jump around a lot on the stage. And so what happened was Satan said, look, our numbers down in hell are decreasing. We're not getting as many people as we used to. We're going to have to up our game. So he's asking the demons for advice. He said, what should we do? Y'all go think about it for a week and come back. So the lights go down. Lights come back on in the play. First demon enters the stage, and the demon says, okay, demon number 1, what do you think we should do? Demon number 1 says, well, let's tell all the people let's tell all the people up there that if you become a Christian, it's all just about rules and regulations. You can't do what you want anymore. And Satan's like, well, that's true. That sounds pretty good, but that's just not it. That's not good enough. Sometimes people find out when they become a Christian that it's not about rules and regulations, so that's not going to work. All right, demon number 2, come on in. Slithers his way in. All right, demon number 2, what you got? He says, well, from everything I see on the earth, they love money. Let's play the greed card. Let's tell people that if you accept Christ, you got to give your stuff away and be nice to people and stuff like that. You can't do what you want to do. You can't buy all the stuff that you want to buy. All of a sudden, you got to give like 10% and crazy stuff like that. Tell them that. Look, you don't want to become a Christian because you can't keep all your money. That's got to do it for some people. And Satan said, well, that's pretty good. That's better than number one. I still don't think that's going to increase our numbers the way we want. All right, send in Demon 3. Demon 3 comes in, he says, all right, I got it. This is the answer. Let's just tell him the whole deal's fake. It's not true. Jesus never did really die on a cross and get resurrected. It was all just kind of a facade. It was a thing that the disciples came up with to not to lose face with everybody and to keep the Jewish people going. Let's just tell them that. Satan's like, well, it does sound pretty good, but the truth of the matter is, it is true. He did rise from the dead. And eventually they're going to figure that out. It's all good stuff. It's just not it. And here comes the fourth demon. That was me. I came in like a hunchback of Notre Dame. Like this. Slinging around. Not too bright of a demon. But I said, I got it. Satan said, what? What do you have to say? And that old snarly demon said, let's just tell them they got plenty of time. That's the answer. It's true. Or maybe it's not true. Nobody knows. Yeah, that's it. That's perfect. We'll add numbers to hell every day increasingly because why? Because people are going to believe that. They're going to think, oh, they got plenty of time. You don't have to make a decision today. The day you die is going to be way off in the future when you're old. Jesus is not going to come back today. It's some other day way off. You got plenty of time. Satan went with that one. He still goes with it today. And I close with this. I was at a wedding celebration. A family that I knew that was very wealthy. Had a big wedding celebration with hundreds of people. And I was there helping with preparations and whatnot. After the wedding ceremony, I sat down beside of the groom's father. That was by himself in the sanctuary. Everybody had left. The car had driven out to leave. And the groom's father was sitting in the back of the sanctuary just weeping. I was going to say, well, it's hard on people to see their kids move and get married off and this kind of a thing. But, he was really distraught. And I sat down with him for a minute. I didn't say anything for a minute because he couldn't really even talk for a few minutes. I was like, I know it's got to be hard when you see your kids married off and they leave. I said, it's not even that. He said, I just thought I had plenty of time. For years, I've chased the money train, and I've gotten very wealthy, as you know. I said, I know. I said, work hard, make a lot of money. That's good. But I kept telling myself, well, one of these days, I'll spend time with my son. One of these days. Get up the next day. Oh, this week I've got to fly to Arkansas and meet with those people. One of these days, I will have time. And then 22 years later, his son's off. They hadn't even actually talked before the wedding at all. They hadn't talked for weeks. He said, I can't blame him. We haven't talked for years. I always thought I had plenty of time. It was a sad story. And I had to sit and talk with him for quite a while. But it made an impact on me. It should make an impact on you. But you never know the day or the time when God is going to end your life, when your life ends. Better make sure that you're possessing, not just professing. As well as your family and friends around you too. Make sure they understand this information because there is going to come a time. It's amazing to me that so many people are preparing for something that's the unknown right now. We're masking up, we're dressing up, we're putting gloves on, we're sanitizing, we're doing everything in the world, which is fine. We're doing everything in the world for something that may or may not happen. So much so, I was in a meeting a couple weeks ago, and somebody actually sprayed me with Lysol. What is happening? It's going a little too far, buddy. And actually, in the middle of the meeting, shh, and I don't think he meant to spray me. I don't think so. I don't know. But anyway, I got him back later. But I'm like, people are really, really going to extra mile. Okay? And you can do that. I understand. But it's amazing to me that a lot of times the same people that are going the extra mile for something that may or may not happen have a very small chance of happening. The very same people that won't do anything for a certainty. You are going to die. Unless Jesus comes back for some reason before you do. Okay, I guess there's a small chance. I know what the chance is. Sure as not, though, you're going to die. What are you doing about it? We do everything under the sun for something that's a very small chance. A lot of people don't do anything if there's certainty. Why is that? I know why. You're telling yourself, I got plenty of time. May not be so. Let's pray.